Friday today, so welcome back to the show. We're glad you made it back. And today you're going to cover 529 plans, and I have no idea where to even start with that. So you're the perfect guy to have here. So let's just hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Biff. Thank you for having me back. So yeah, today's topic is to really talk about 529 plans and what does that mean? How does it benefit people? So I am going to kind of do a very high level discussion of what 529 plans are and what they can be used for. So generally speaking, Biff, a 529 plan is typically used for saving money for education. And we may families may have a particular way of how they want to save money for college, whether it's for them, whether it's for their children, which is the primary population of this, for grandchildren and or even trying to save it for themselves to transfer it to another individual. So with 529 plans, you can actually do cover some of the areas of tax planning with me, education planning, and retirement planning. And so it may seem weird as to why retirement planning wouldn't get involved with that, but I can definitely touch on that topic. Oh, and additionally, investment planning, because having the right investment tool for each person or the length of goal for that 529 plan is going to be very important as well. So kind of just jumping right in, really kind of talking on the topic of how a 529 plan works. So just a brief overview, what it is typically used for is college education or even K through 12 expenses that are qualified. So every state has maybe some specific uh, criteria behind that. Some states also provide a state income deduction if you get involved into their 529 plan. There's also some pre-planning, paying tuition pre in advance, and so those are some of the advantages. And Biff, I'm pretty sure you've had birthday parties in the past for your children, and people just brought random toys that the kids didn't really like. Well, what is neat about the 529 plan is that, for instance, let's say you create a QR code for your child's invitation saying, in lieu of a gift, if you wouldn't mind just, 20, $30 going into this 529 plan instead. As you know, one of the wonders of the world is compounding. So doing that at an early age. And so that's a little trick not a lot of people really know about when it comes down to the 529 plans. Um, and another component of the 529 plans that can be very supportive is that utilizing the investments. Some plans, and I say plans because each state has a plan. And I can manage 529 plans from where I'm at as well. But each plan has a different criteria, different investments. And so being able to use their menu options of investments for each state, or and you can also cross state. Say if you live in state A and you want to buy one for state B, you can do that. Um, and so being able to leverage the investment options is there's going to be very imperative. Sometimes they may put you in something kind of like a target date. So meaning saying, hey, my child is 13 and we're going to need this to be a lot more conservative by the time we're 18 or 19. So there's target dates for those as well. And that's going to be a very crucial option. If you remember last conversation we had, is a mistake individuals make is that they're too conservative too early. And the reverse can be the same. They can be too aggressive in their investments if they need that money soon. And so those are common mistakes. What's always important to work with an advisor.
Okay.
Um, and so one thing that's important, Viv, this is very crucial. If you let's say you have three children and I mean this very kindly, very, self uh very softly, if you will, is there's going to be a truth of some things. A kid may decide not to go to school, or may delay it, and that's okay. Education in college is not for everybody. Maybe it's a vocational school that may be qualifying for the 529 plan. Maybe one of your children decides to go into work on diesel mechanic trucks and start working as an apprentice. Um, so there's a couple of different ways to leverage the money that you invested in this 529 plan. It can be transferred to an eligible sibling, or an eligible family member, realistically. Um, and additionally, and there's some time frame criteria. Since 2022, the Secures Act 2.0 allowed for 529 plans. If there's any excess after, a 4-year degree, after a master's degree, or if the student just didn't even go to college, you can start transferring that into your Roth IRA and utilize it as a retirement account in the future. That way, that money has never gone to waste. And if that person ends up having children and wanting to go to college, you can transfer it to that child too. So it's
Okay.
very flexible.
Very nice. So let's say I decide I'm going to execute on this 529 plan. Is this something that comes out bi-weekly from my paycheck automatically, like before taxes, and then transfers into the account, or can you set it up both ways, or how does that process work?
Yeah, so it's just putting money into an account that you would normally just add money to through your checking account.
Okay.
You can choose to have it deducted monthly. It's not going to be pre-tax, but it is going to invest and it is going to grow tax deferred until the proper usage.
And these funds are yours, obviously. You're just kind of putting them into an account. And you can use these funds on, I think some reading I was doing earlier. It looks like you can use it for room and board,
Mhm.
books, any of that sort of thing. So is there a minimum amount of time you have to have these funds in that account? And then conversely to that, what's that process look like when you go to pull the funds? Is there a check issued to you? Is it deducted straight from that particular account? How does that work out?
Yep. So what typically happens is we think about us, let's think about laundry. We put in a washer, put in a dryer. Now we have this basket. So let's translate that to the 529 distribution. You have your money in there, it grew, you take it out, and you go and pay for college tuition. It almost seems like, well, what is supposed to come next? It is nearly an honor system, but you throw those receipts and those confirmations from your 529 plan into that same basket. And the time you go iron it out, your clothes is about the time you wear it. At the same time, you go iron that out with your tax advisor, and they will make sure that the dollar figures match up and each expense is qualifying. So you want to save your receipts for those distributions.
Okay. Um, I guess another question I might have then, and this might be a goofy question, but does each state have a different interest rate on your investments, or is there any interest rates? How does your money grow in the 529? Or is it just simply just an account you're putting stuff into? That's kind of a little safe nest for it to be strictly used for those reasons later on in life.
Yeah, so there are different options with each state. Some of them may have more of an aggressive portfolio, and it's okay to be aggressive, especially in the early years. Um, we would essentially want to tone down the aggressive level, especially when they get towards middle school or early middle school, and start having that a mixture between bonds and stocks and a little bit of portion of cash, just in case we see a downturn market like we've done in the first quarter of 2025. And who knows, maybe that person needed to pay tuition for that semester early on. So with a target date, that's one of those funds that you essentially just put money into it, and it progressively becomes more conservative over time. The fund managers, the portfolio managers will eventually make the tweaks over time. Now, if you wanted to have a little bit more control, then that's where you would essentially work on a portfolio structure with me.
Okay. That makes sense. And something that kind of intrigues me, the 529 plan you said can be used for K-12. And that could be for tuition costs,
Hmm.
because sometimes your private schools or whatnot could be a little more expensive and stuff like that. Can I use it for like my daughter's cheerleading, let's say, for example? Would that be a qualifying expense? Because I don't know if the listeners probably know if they have children that are high school age. That's a huge ticket cost that comes just
Right.
kind of seemingly out of nowhere. Can you use it for that sort of thing or like club sports, or do they have to have a qualifying um, tax code for those organizations, or how does that sort of stuff work?
Yeah, so even if that was an expense that it comes up, and there are certain ways that I can really do some tax planning to cover that. However, it does kind of relate to state for state, and for the most part, those are not covered
Okay.
because it is not an educational route. Now, there may be some leeway behind that, but it is definitely going to be on a case by case basis.
Okay. Um, I really liked your idea of that QR code at the birthday parties, by the way. I mean, that's just I mean, come on. If anything's taken from this, what a great idea. Because as we know, every penny adds up and matters. And a lot
Yeah.
of times it just ends up kind of, going off into the wind. But if you could take those funds and you're not able to touch them, they just go straight away and somewhere tucked in nice and safe. That's a phenomenal call out. That's a great idea. And by the way, if we can create QR codes that route money straight to the Biff Delgado show, we're more than happy to figure that out for you too. So we'd appreciate that. Uh, so Eric, it sounds like people kind of need to start looking at this sooner than later, as their kids are little. Can it start at birth, and then go until they essentially get finished with grad school and whatnot? Or is there a minimum age or?
Yeah, I mean, really can just kind of starting whenever. Even if they're a late starter and they're, maybe a sophomore or something like that in high school or even in college, you can start tucking that money away because if they do have some tuition or some student loans, after they are done with school, they have a lifetime allowance of using $10,000 from the 529 plan to pay off student loans.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And working with me, that's actually a strategy I do implement with some individuals, just because some of the 529 plans may have, there's a downturn market, or there's even some tax issues with when somebody fills out FAFSA, there may be a calculation issue if the gift was coming, if the owner was the grandparent and the student's the beneficiary. So if the grandparent was the owner of the account, there may be some calculation issues, and so sometimes that's actually leverage is to have that $10,000 loan after college and use your 529 to pay it off.
Awesome. Okay, so basically, it sounds like out of the numerous things somebody could reach out to you, certified financial planner, 529 plans is certainly one of them, and something that we highly recommend people start researching now, especially if they're in their young adult lives and are just starting out their families. Also, if they have kids that are in junior high and high school, jump on it and get going right away. Is there anything else, Eric, you think you could touch on 529s or anything like that nature?
Yeah, so that's, without going too deep, that's really kind of like a light brush over some of the 529s. An actual strategy would be something that I would have to take a look at with somebody specifically and look at their situation and really be able to understand it. And so if there is something that somebody has a specific question, feel free to schedule a consultation with me and we can have a conversation.
Okay. I guess one question I might have for 529 plans, and this could be completely random, but what are the minimum requirements for a person to have the account, such as do they have to be a U.S. citizen? Do they have to have legal documentation, social security number? Are those the bare, some of the certain things that they would have to have to qualify for this?
Yeah, so the 529 for each state is handled through an investment company.
Okay.
So whenever you create a 529 plan, the owner would have to have all the just, all that information. They generally want the beneficiary information.
Okay.
And so just to kind of plan, prepare, since that person is so young and have really no cyber track of them of any kind, it may be a good idea to get those documents prepared in case the fund company does require them,
Sure.
because there's a little system check to make sure that everybody is who they are, who they say are, and it's called Know Your Client policy with us people in the industry.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, Eric. Yeah. Well, again, Eric, we're going to keep Financial Fridays short but sweet and really good information on the 529 plans. I encourage everybody listening to this, give Eric a call. We've got his information on the page. We'll share it again in the link. And I might even share just a little conventional link too for the state of Nebraska. I'll call out of what they offer for 529, knowing that that will differ state to state. So, Eric, thank you very much for your time again today and joining us for Financial Friday. And we're looking forward to hearing from you next week.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.